Ranch Hall. He's gonna take town staff.
It's so big.
Just shifted to another department.
Here it's not town staff, it's the direct role person, but actually be the supporting role. You know what I mean? Not let them go away.
Somebody told me this afternoon and said that they were sending me by fax a
Fairly
pull permit.
There were,
I never got it, and I looked all day, and I never saw it.
I'm a little bit jealous.
And they repeated the
bring them,
right
babe?
numbers.
I want to see what other color this is. Oh, I know.
Will you bring them for you?
No, they were here when I got here.
Oh, I was gonna say,
work through
Did you see it?
they're our property now, aren't they?
See something.
call up,
Check
ask
and see.
questions,
I hate to not get it again.
walk you through it, but somebody has to
They said we sent it in September, really? Where is it going?
What was this?
Where is this
Politics
thing?
fun.
If it's not fun, people won't do it.
That's right.
Something fun.
And when you get up my age, you gotta think
I was
about it.
looking
though.
for it.
See, who-
No, somebody called me today and said they were gonna fax it to me. I'm like, okay.
Over to you yet?
You know what I'm really excited about? Mel, you know,
Get the permit.
takes a lot of pictures, and she has Facebook links.
Statute on that, they can make you take it down.
Mostly literature and stuff like that. Melvin asked her to show them in one of their practice centers. Usually they have 3 or 4 photographers at a time or artists.
Yeah, I think it's done. It's just like, when you get a call.
Very excited about it. She got a lot of friends, and then she got emails. Says, "Wait," and she's like, "Oh, maybe they changed
Sent it
it."
in September.
And they said, "We want just you and one other artist. We're holding back. We'd like to have."
No, because you repeated
That's
it
a
to
pizza
me.
shop and he like gets
And
this
make sure you
fax
have business cards and maybe have an
Maybe
opening.
that's down 9 or
That'll
something.
be
I'm
good.
dialing it. I sent it out or something. She said 3533007, right? And I was like, right? Like, what is? Did you see it?
Evil pictures.
Yeah, I'm learning just by
See?
hearing you guys talk about it. I mean, because I could do
He's gonna make it, we're on the last
I
minute.
should have got their
analysis and
phone
math.
number.
I think that we need to continue with the way that, you know, but you gotta learn all those pieces to it.
All right, Twilight, you all set?
Yeah,
Mark, you all good?
let's just open this up.
Everybody all set? All right, 7 o'clock. Bring this meeting to order. Would you please rise for the pledge?
October 2, 2005.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Bickford?
Here,
Counselor Mason is excused. Counselor Bowie?
Here.
Amalo?
Here.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Here.
Counselor Ward?
Here.
And Counselor Lynn?
Here?
Next
First-
item, please.
First item is the public hearing. We don't have any tonight. We'll begin with audience participation. At this time, those in the audience who wish to address the council may come forward. Please use the microphone at the podium. State your name and address for the record.
Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. Why do the people have to beg for the after-action financial report on the Moxie Festival every year? Last year, Scott Benson gave an excellent presentation with a financial sheet detailing the revenues and expenses. It's 90 days after the Moxie Festival, and we haven't heard a word about how we came out on it financially. Next item. Now that we've determined that the original amount budgeted for the tax payment, TIF payment, was inflated by $107,000, how are we going to earmark this account to be reduced by $107,000 for the next year's budget? Because TRIO is going to show $284,000 budgeted, $284,000 spent. This is not accurate because only $177,388.15 was actually utilized for TIF payments. What account was the $96,258 transferred from the TIF payment account? What account did it go into? The new fireworks ordinance does not include an age restriction. I know it's in the state, but I think it should be in ours also. Also, it does not mention anything about novelty fireworks such as snappers. Everything is addressing consumer fireworks, but doesn't say anything about novelty fireworks in there, and I think there should be something in there. Has the town determined how many LLCs have homestead exemption, the total amount owed to the town, and how is the town going to collect these back taxes? Second time I've asked this question. And finally, why does the audience participation response come after the audience participation? You're addressing questions that were asked in the previous meeting, and I think it should be before audience participation, so we know what questions you've already answered and we don't have to ask them again. Thank you.
Roger Cody, Lisbon Falls. We have a new addition to our neighborhood. It was a pole that is, from my understanding, going to be the new communication tower for the police. Is there any truth to that?
It's a temporary pole we put up, yes.
Has anything been done as far as an impact study to what that's going to do to the neighborhood?
Nope.
Has anybody stopped to think that there's an ordinance on the books that says there'll be no businesses on Route 9, and we're summoning people on Route 9 for having businesses? Why would we be allowing a business like this?
Public safety pole? you're
Public
talking-
safety, it doesn't matter. It's a business that takes in money. It is the communication center that is selling his business to Sabattis and Durham. That is a business, regardless what else it is. And that's on the books. We are summoning 2 people on Route 9 right now that I've got letters that I can bring in and show you that you have copies of. I've got mine that I can bring in and show you, that you've shut down businesses on Route 9. That's a business. That ought to be taken into consideration. That tower is going to be less than 125 feet from my front door. That gives off radiation, and I'm not too overly excited about having that giving off radiation when they're telling officers not to use cell phones and radar detectors too close to their head. Tower right across the street from my house, I don't think is the best place for it. I talked to Mr. Upham tonight, and he told me he was very, very upset that they abutted that right to his property and never spoke a word to him. Who approved it? Was any of the paperwork done ahead of time? Was the permits gathered to put this tower up? You know, this is the chief of police that's doing this. I would think he would know the law. At least I would hope he would.
There's
I
a-
mean,
there's a lot
this
that-
is not rocket science, people.
This is something that's been going on quite some time, and I believe you'll find that it's more than just the chief of police that this is going on to. This tower and grant that's for this has been going for quite some time. That area's been looked at and designated as the area to go.
Why wasn't the people told of it?
As far as where it was going, in a
Yes,
sense.
I heard you approached Mr. Fairbanks, you approached Mr. Kelly to buy property and decided that you're going to put it in front of my driveway.
I think at the end of the day, we actually have right now in town a concern, and this has nothing to do with communication, the dispatch. This is actually to do with more the repeat of the fire department. There've been concerns about the equipment that we have and the location, the missed calls, and some of the ones not being paged out. And it was actually told to the chief that he needed to get this up and going as soon as possible. There's potentially a tower going up there, a water tower at some point in time that they may be able to join on to that, maybe not. The town doesn't have financial. Actually was a potential way of actually assuring the safety in town, and actually I don't believe that Chief Gallup or any of our officials would actually put something up that's going to harm people. I really don't. I think they're in the business of protecting people, not harming people. And
Well-
if I think it would, and I believe if they felt that it was a concern enough that, or it would be taken away from people's lifestyle up there, that they probably would have approached it in a little different way. But all there is, I agree, what I believe right now is up there is a pole.
Right now, there's just a pole, but I'm sure they're gonna do something with it.
And do you know what's going on top of the pole, or,
All I've been told is a communication tower.
but do you know, it may be worthwhile to ask the questions, what it's gonna look like and what it is. I don't believe what you're seeing is a very big,
The point that
piece
I'm
up there.
bringing out, Fern, is that as a homeowner in the town of Lisbon, and a council that we pay for, I would think that you would approach us and tell us what you're gonna do, and not have to come to you to ask what you're trying to do to it.
I mean, I think there's a lot of items that happen in town that actually, that don't even come to the council, because they're really not our, it's actually a state road and state right-of-way. It's not even for us to approve. It's not a, it's.
It
the-
is a
the pole-
business.
It's not a business.
It's
This is
not a business.
I mean,
So that
this
means we
town
don't have
off-
to pay them anymore?
This town office isn't a business. It's not really, at this point in time, Roger, it's not something for us to argue about back and forth. It is a concern, and I'm sure Chief will actually, as time goes on, try to get the proper information out there so people won't have the concern, and I'm sure he will.
Well, I'm really not too impressed with it, and neither will the rest of the people on Route 9 right now very impressed with it. And if we have to, we'll push it further, because that tower will not stay there.
And that's your right.
Right. Another question I have is, what's going on with the 32.5? What are we gonna do? Just let this slide until finally the time is run out on it, or what?
No, actually, that is, I mean, we've talked about this quite a bit in the past, and again, that is something that council doesn't direct. It's actually been directed to legal to take care of it, and I believe it's still in process.
Thank you.
About Fitzgerald Lisbon Falls, I wasn't going to say anything, but a temporary pole, why a temporary pole? How much does it cost to put up a pole, temporary or not? And who's paying for it? And what is it going to be replaced with? A communication tower? What is that going to look like? You know, how high up? Do you have any idea?
I think if anybody has any questions on what this is going to be, I think the proper person is I believe Chief Gallipo is the one that's been heading this up. It is money that we received, grant money, to actually do this, to actually improve our communications. And I believe that if anybody has a big question, would be to come in and meet with Sean and our fire chief, and he could explain exactly what it's going to look like, what it's going to be done, and what the long-term plan is.
Don't you think that the townspeople and the residents should have been informed before the fact?
It's, at this point in time, there's really nothing that we can add as council. I mean, it's something that would not even come up front of council as far as for going up, being in a state right away, and being a safety matter.
It's not a function or something of the council? I don't understand.
I actually came in and spoke and asked Dodd, and if this was actually going on a town road, typical, if you're gonna put a pole up in a right-of-way of a town on one of our public roads, it has to go through on the town office, and needs to come to the council. We need to actually approve it. Being on a state road, we actually, as a council, have no say on what happens in there right-of-way, none at all.
Well, you have a say on the tower, I would hope. How high is this tower going to be? Is it going to be, 4 legs going up, and how high? People in Roxbury are complaining about the wind towers there on top of the hill. Is this, how much is this going to impact that neighborhood, that area?
I would answer that with same thing with you or anybody else who has a concern. Please come in and meet with the chief, and he can actually explain it and show you pictures and go over the details.
I would think you would have had the information before this came up and provided it.
If this tower is going to be a safety issue, and that's the purpose of it going up, then don't you feel as though that an impact survey to see how it's going to affect the neighborhood, the people around there, and everything would have been completed prior to putting a pole up. I would think that if we're talking about safety and a safety issue, then we should have had a survey done or a investigation as to the impact of how it's going to affect communications within the homes, the residents, home protection systems, things like that. I think a feasibility study and the impact of what it's going to do should have been done prior to going up, at least.
I think this is not a short-term overnight decision. I believe what you're actually seeing is something that's actually has been done. I have full faith in our public safety people to actually have done this. It's a permitting process. It's actually very, very involved. So I mean, it isn't something that someone flips a coin and just says, I'm going to do it just because I want to. I mean, you got to give our people a lot more credibility than that. Sir.
Put up like that.
Gordon Curtis, Lisbon Falls. At your last council meeting, you awarded a bid to Siemens Contracting, Siemens Company for preventive maintenance contract on apparently the whole town's townside HVAC and that kind of stuff. Basically, Siemens was not the low bidder, nor were they responsive. And in your RFP, you asked that you said that the low bid will be awarded to the bid will be awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. They were not the lowest, and they were not responsive because I understand they were an hour late with a bid. That's not a practice that usually happens with any bid opening. Their bid was, I guess I don't have that. Anyway, their bid was not the lowest. Lowest bid was Specialty Services out of Green, company run by Mr. Andy Witham. I know him a little bit. He and I spent 2 hours there at MTM on May 15th, I think it was, 4 months ago, looking over stuff there. And he had a lot of ideas about stuff that would help us save efficiency, save fuel, and save comfort. And seeing that Siemens was not the lowest or most responsive bidder, I would think you would reconsider that bid and do the right thing. If we get the contractors get a feeling of the town that even though they are the lowest bidder and they are responsible and responsive, that they're not going to get the bid, then pretty quick we're going to get just one company bidding high because they know they're going to get it, and that's not a good thing either. So I would like to see you think about that some more. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
You have property on Gould Road, corner of Gould Road and Route 9. Why couldn't that tower have been put there? You're gonna have property on Upland Road that you're just in the process of purchasing from Mr. Upham. Why can't it be put there? Why does it have to be put right in front of a bunch of homes?
I believe the situation that we have is we actually have equipment that's failing that needs to be replaced. And I think right from the beginning, as you mentioned, the temporary, we had a situation that we needed to address, and I think Chief is doing the proper thing that he needs to do to actually get a tower in place. We don't, the area that was actually designated for the tower to be, we would love to be able to buy a piece of property in that designated area, but unfortunately the town doesn't have the funds to buy property up in that area. This was actually a way that Chief can actually go, make sure that when there's a fire call, that as you know, being a volunteer department, that the guys receive the call. At this point in time, there's been problems on past, and his main concern is to get that addressed. And like I say, Roger, Chief Gallipo would actually have a lot more answers than I would.
Yeah,
If you want to address that, that's fine, Chief.
There's an empty lot right down the road from my house. They could have put it in front of that empty lot, and it wouldn't have bothered anybody. But put it right across from my driveway, it does bother me greatly.
Chief.
First off, this is a long time. We received a grant from EMA to be able to buy some repeaters, to purchase some repeaters to help the fire and the fire and police side
of Lisbon. So there's no other dispatch frequencies that are going to be up there except for repeaters for the fire department and the police department. This started out that it was going to be, it's got a long $4 name on it, promulgation study or something for radio. And that being the height of the land in the town of Lisbon, that is the best place to put any type of a repeater setup. So we basically went for federal licensing. It took months to get federal licensing. We are finally approved for frequencies for our repeaters for that at a 2-watt power. That's very minimal. That's how high we are there. There stands 100 feet above the tower, basically, on Summer Street. So that's the height of the land, so we had to be as close as we can in that area. The right-of-way, we became the right-of-way because of the fact that the talks basically fell through with 2 landowners up top. Basically, too much funding, basically, that the town would not be able to come up with. So looking at that, I said, well, how come we can't just go on the right-of-way? That's an area that we can be at, talk to the water department, have preliminary approval to, if we do go with the upland property and put a water tower there, that we're going to do the same that we're doing on Summer Street, and we're going to move our antenna for the repeater onto the water tower there on Upland's property. Now, the difference in that is that water tower, even though it's going to be down the hill easterly of us, or south of us, from that location, it's going to be approximately 65 feet above the ground, which puts us basically at the same height of where we're at. So we should not lose any communications there. A completely digital system, there should be no problems whatsoever with any alarm systems, anything in the area. When we were first looking at going into the area up there, it was going to be a 45-foot steel triangle tower. That's no longer. This is a 1 utility pole, 35-foot utility pole, with a 3-foot box and a 2-foot box mounted on it, with a whip antenna, a 12-foot whip antenna at the top of it. That's it. Can be taken out of the ground afterwards. There's a panel next to it so that we have an emergency, has a panel for basically to knock the power down, and an emergency generator switch so that if we do lose power for any given time, there's not a generator up there. I can bring one of our portable handheld generators up there, chain it, because somebody's going to walk off with that definitely, and be able to give repeater power and communications to us. This has been in all of your packets over the last 2 months, multiple times. So it has been put out there. Everything has been going up. I've been keeping everybody posted on where we are and what aspect of the project that we're at. So hopefully that gives us a little bit of clearing up.
Thank you, Chief.
If it's been in your packets, how come you haven't told us anything about it?
Roger, as you know, as counselor, we get packets sometimes an inch thick, everything from cable TV to you name it. I mean, if it was an item that was coming across for us to make a discussion on, a vote on, it would actually have been discussed more.
I got a good solution for this. Burn my house down and put it where my house is. Then you'll have the highest lot in town.
Hi, I'm Julie Cordner from Lisbon Falls. I know we've spoken a few times. I'm here about the firework issue. We live next to an extreme case. We've even been subpoenaed to go to court as witnesses for Lisbon PD because they've landed on our property, in our pool. We've had them burning on our roof. We've had them in retaliation for calling and reporting them, had them thrown on our front lawn, bricks of them lit. And I have a child care in my home, and this was done during child care hours in the middle of the day. It's a huge issue, and it's frustrating for us. It's frustrating for our other neighbors who aren't very comfortable coming forward because of the retaliation that these neighbors are engaging in with us. Profanity to our children, you know, giving the finger to children, such things, swearing over the fence. And such items. We have a dog that will barely go outside anymore to go to the bathroom, you know, and all we hear is how they have the right to do it. Well, what about the rights of our children to play in our backyard safely without, you know, I have toddlers that are crying and screaming. They don't know what the noise is, right? Literally on the other side of the fence. We're right on Wing Street, you know, close the houses are. Literally on the other side of the fence is where it's happening. You know, what about the rights of our kids and the rights of our pets to not be emotionally and, you know, traumatized, basically? I mean, it sounds exaggerated, but it is really not an exaggeration. It's from 8 o'clock in the morning until, right up until the 10 o'clock where the cutoff is. You know, and it's like a big game, and it's just, you know, we're trying to have a voice. I don't know how the town can have more of a voice. I did the survey, had parents of the child care do the survey. Just, I guess, want to state that it's a bigger issue in some areas than maybe what it seems to be. And what can we do about it? You know, we've lived here for 14 years, never had an issue with these neighbors. I watched their children, you know, their grandchildren. And now it's just, it's crazy. You know, we don't dare to leave our cars unattended for any amount of time. We don't dare to leave, you know, one of us is always home. You know, our kids are in sports, but we've even gone to where one of us stays home, and it's not right. You know, we're working hard, we pay our taxes, we have the right to just, you know, live in peace and not in fear and not listening to that all the time. And, you know, we incurred charges to have the pool cleaned and things like that and clean up the yard. And I guess we just, I'm curious to know how we have a voice and where the ordinance is at, what stage it's at, if there's going to be one at all. And the neighbors as well, as a side note, their son comes here to do them because he lives in Brunswick and he can't do them. So he comes here and days on end because he doesn't work because he's on disability. So while he's over lighting fireworks, he's playing the stereo and singing over the fence how, you know, the song "I Don't Want to Work," that's what we're listening to as I'm trying to work.
Very unfortunate. Tonight, the council is going to bring up again the fireworks item. Tonight, whatever way we go is actually going to be a first vote on a first reading, which would mean a second opportunity would be a public hearing for the people to come in and speak. But we will make a vote one way or the other tonight. There is a copy of the ordinance that we originally had put together that's in that packet. You know, the ordinance does restrict it, even though it does allow it for a couple nights out of the year. It doesn't allow it within so many feet of a house, which would actually totally do away with some of your concerns and the hours of day. So there's a lot of thought that went into this ordinance that we looked at, and we'll be talking about it in a little bit. So hopefully,
Okay, so it sounds like then it's going in that direction where there will be more.
Last time we
Right now
got
it's-
here, we actually wouldn't come up with a vote, but we are going to vote one way or the other tonight before we leave, so.
Okay, because, you know, yeah, because I respect the police department, and I understand they're frustrated because their hands have been tied because they can't.
They don't have any
it's
tools
not
to
illegal.
use.
You know, one thing I don't understand is why we have friends that are in law enforcement, and they said, what about disturbance of the peace and, you know, disorderly?
We actually have a state law that really is not very defining when it comes to fireworks. So hopefully tonight we'll actually do it. But that is, like I say, this is a first step in the process. It's something that, even though we vote tonight, it's still a process that goes for at least another meeting, if not two. So
Okay.
hopefully we'll move in that some type of direction.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Miriam Morgan Alexander, Lisbon. For those who don't know me too well, I, in my previous travels, have spent a number of years both in the fire service and as a sheriff's department bomb squad tech out west. And the way fireworks have been blown off in this town recently makes me really, really, really nervous. The average person has no concept of what these explosives will do, including the incendiaries that are in these explosives. I've read the ordinance. It's not the best in the world, I don't think, but actually I think it's quite workable, and I would like to encourage you to pass it.
Any other takers for audience participation? Russ?
Ross Cunningham, Lisbon Falls. Just on behalf of the Promotions Committee, I wanted to just give you a quick update on the Harvest Festival this past weekend. Mother Nature jumped up and hit us in the back of the head, so we had to move it inside. LCS was very, very amenable. That worked out very well for us. We had about half the turnout we traditionally had. We raised about $800 for the 7 to 8 nonprofit groups that were there, so they each walked away with about $100 in their pocket. So it was a good day, and big thanks. This year we had a fire truck with firefighters Casimir and Robital came out, and they displayed that for the kids to crawl around in, poke in, and generally break, I'm sure. But it was a good day, and I appreciate the support from the town. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other takers? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item.
Audience participation response.
And at this time, I don't believe we have any response from last meeting. Next item?
Is the consent agenda. Any counselor wishing to have an item removed may do so now. Order 2012-155 to approve the minutes of September 11 and 18.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Next item, please.
Is under council orders, resolutions, and ordinances. Order 2012-156, the fireworks ordinance. It's a first reading. Roll call vote is required.
Motion to accept.
Second it.
Roll call, please.
Council Bowie?
Yay.
Council Bickford?
Yay.
Council Ward?
Yes.
Council Pomelo?
Yes.
Council La Rochelle?
Yes.
Council Lunt?
Yes.
We have 6 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
So the next item of that will be a second reading and a public hearing. So people will be able to voice their opinion on this ordinance if anybody has concerns.
Will that come forward the next time? Will it be on the 6th?
November 6th is, I guess we'll have to talk about that later, whether or not that's the night that we meet or not. Next item, Twyla.
Other business. Under other business, we have the library update.
Diane will give an update of how her programs went this summer and other things that she's working on.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the Town Council, Town Manager, and Lisbon citizens. Thank you for this opportunity to give you an update on what's happening at our library. I'm very happy to report that it has stayed very busy since my last report last October. More than 35,000 customers came through our doors of the library for a variety of services last year, and that's from preschoolers to seniors and everything in between. I'm sure you've all heard the stories of the gloom and doom stories that public libraries are on their way out because of the new technology, the ease of patrons to be able to download on their e-readers, iPads, pods, tablets, and everything else. I'm here to tell you tonight, I assure you, there is some technology, but it's not taking the place of what we do. What has happened, yes, the technology is here to stay, and libraries have to adapt, but patrons are not ready to give up their books, their movies, or their DVDs anytime soon in our small public library and most public libraries. So that's a good thing. The patrons are reading bestsellers still. Authors like Patterson, Ivanovich, King, they're all still popular, and we can't keep them on the shelves. Last year, adult patrons checked out 29,722 fiction and nonfiction titles, along with 3,117 magazines. And we're one of the few public libraries who still allow our magazines to go out to the general public. They treat them kindly, and they come back and they enjoy them, so we're not going to stop that. The children checked out 20,174 books. Circulation of DVDs and videos was up by 8% last fiscal year, with 6,634 items that went out to our customers. And again, this service continues to be affordable. It costs nothing. 4 checkouts per family per period. So getting back on time, it's free. Patrons continue to rely on the library for their computer needs. That won't go away, and we've accepted that. The 3 public use computers clocked 5,186 hours
Wow.
by our Lisbon residents last year. And until you crunch these numbers, you're never sure. You know it's busy, but when you sit down with the adding machine, you think, wow, how did we do that? The need continued to be job searches, resume writing, and reaching out to family and friends with social media. Interesting to note, we saw an increase in customers who needed the computers for taking online classes. Some tell us they can't get to various campuses, or some say my class is only available online and I don't have internet access. So we've seen an increase in that. This service was up by 6% from the previous year. And this is one area that we'll have to continuously watch and assess and keep up with the new equipment to meet the needs of our community. The community workforce project update from Mr. Benson and I is as follows. We have completed and submitted the project development paperwork to the state of Maine. We are awaiting their review of these documents and approval to move forward to go under contract with them to get the funds. We expect this to happen in October, this month. And once we are under contract, we will focus on bringing on the consultant to implement our program. Scott and I will meet with the advisory committee this month to review the draft of the RFP for the consultant. And then we're very happy about this. We intend to have our first programming for our Lisbon citizens in place by the end of this calendar year. And we will certainly keep you and the town manager informed in this matter. Surely my report would not be complete if I did not mention the Children's Services. They make up a big part of what we do at the library, and Children's Services are very important to our community. We resumed our preschool programs September 5th. We had given them a rest for the summer so we could concentrate on the summer readers. And we changed the format to reflect our children's and parents' needs. We no longer have the separate toddler time and story time. We've combined them to one program for ages 18 months to 5 years of age. We had outgrown that little program room. It was so tight in there, and beyond reading, the kids couldn't move around. And so we've taken it out to the main room of the library. It happens every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And this gives Miss Jo Jean the opportunity with her 15 to 20 kids, plus their parents, to not only read fun books, but we have a wonderful parachute, and they bounce the balls, and they get under that, and they just whoop it up. They do baby yoga, baby exercise, and some dancing. And some singing, of course, singing. Musical instruments, and they have a great time, so the change has worked for us, so we're pleased with that. Our summer reading program was very busy and successful. What you see here is a sample of the posters that went to the local businesses. And we chose the local theme. We put this together in-house. My staff worked very hard. The artwork was done by a 12-year-old student, very talented. Emma Schock, is that her name? One of my employees' daughters, very talented artist. The children learned about the history of our community, which was wonderful. Places, people, school buildings, they're just wonderful. We had 164 children, and they read 1,657 books in 5 weeks. A little bit down from the previous year, but not too much. It seemed that the children this year also took part in other programs like the Y Camp or sports camps, and so they did a lot. So they were busy, and we were happy with that. I would like to mention and thank the following businesses who generously allowed the library to display posters like this in their windows and allowed the kids to come in with their parents, record that number so they could run back to the library and get prizes. We had Angelo's Pizzeria, Aubuchon Hardware, Benoit's Bakery, Bono's Sausage Kitchen, Chummy's Restaurant, Down East Energy, Drapo's Costume Shop, Doobie's Music Shop, Food City, Getty Station, Good Time Lanes, Here's to You, Kennebec Corner Store, Lisbon Farm Market, Lisbon Community Credit Union, Lisbon Hair Studio, M&T Pools, Maine Art Glass Studio, Napa Auto Parts, Spillers, something fishy, and tangles. So 22 companies were very, very gracious, and we thank them for allowing us to do this with our children. They all received a thank you plaque that the children designed, and were all very happy and said they'd do it again. And so it's good community outreach, and we didn't ask them for money or anything. It was just, you know, let's get together as a community. So that worked well. We have several families that have decided that on a weekly basis they will have a play group. It's a safe, educational, and fun place to meet, and we love having them. And we still host our baby group on Monday afternoons. It's interesting to note that the kids didn't go away after summer reading program this year. They stayed with us throughout the month of August and have stayed with us after school. They've come back to us to do homework, and many others do research for school projects. And it's great to have the kids back to use the library for books and magazines, again for research, and just a little away from internet, so we're happy about that. And I'm pleased to say that our collection reflects their school curriculum. The kids can come in and say, my teacher has asked me to do a report on the state of Massachusetts. What do you have? And we have something. And we're very happy to work with the teachers, so we're reaching out to the local schools. And so I guess you can say we've been rediscovered, so we're happy. We've also seen an increase in the number of teens who come to the library for their reading and research needs. And as you all know, they're a much tougher group to impress, but it's become cool again to come to the library. I wish we had a teen room for them, but we will certainly keep that in mind with future expansions. An update on our building. The staff and patrons have enjoyed the new Mitsubishi air conditioning and heating units. They are very quiet and efficient. We successfully transitioned from cooling to heating last week, and they remain quiet. We don't hear this. The heat seems to circulate throughout both rooms well, as promised by the company. And every time I see the town manager or the town engineer, I say, thank you. We're just as pleased as could be. The children's room restoration project work will begin late fall or early winter, according to the town engineer, Ryan Layton. He will finish all the outside projects, and then the RFP will go out at that time. And I'll keep the town manager and the board informed in this matter, whether we need to close or what we need to do. The children's garden was a very popular spot this summer. Mr. Tupper maintained it throughout the summer, and Verla Brooks and her team cut back some bushes, trimmed some trees, and did some mulching. The Playhouse will stay open till the end of October. Our staff of 6 and our summer intern are working on various projects and assist patrons on a daily basis. The center's grant that enabled us to hire a summer intern was very successful. A local teen, Robert Dow, has worked hard and become a valued, albeit temporary, staff member. The kids love working with him. He brings much enthusiasm and fun to the kids. And the funds that are available will allow Robert to stay with us through the end of October. Interlibrary loan services have become popular. 1,110 items came and went last year. This represents a 3% increase from the previous year. Our patrons enjoy the ease of getting books, movies, and audio materials from as far as California and as close as Lewiston, Auburn. The funding from the Maine legislature for the statewide program increased a bit, and it has given our library an additional delivery day. It's a gift of about $900 from the state, so we're happy. No money is exchanged. It's done through the state library. We've added Monday as our second delivery day. It's made a big difference in the number of items we can get for our residents, the timely delivery for research, and just the convenience of it, not having to get in your car, even if you're a college student at Orono and you're home for Christmas, we can get it for you, so it's terrific. The Friends of the Library continue their fundraising efforts. They did very well with the Moxie Day book sale. Their next fundraiser will be selling Thanksgiving Day basket raffle tickets at both polling locations in November, and we thank Twyla for that opportunity. They hope to raise enough funds to replace the wooden sign that hangs outside of our front window. That sign has served us well for many years, but it's begun to rot, and the colors have faded. I'm working with the sign company to come up with a new design that will reflect who we are now. We're going to do away with Lisbon Falls Community. It's with just the Lisbon Library. The time has come for that. And also to keep the integrity of our Main Street look or feel, and to really reflect what the new signs that they're working on with Scott and the rest of the group. So our governing board and I will review these designs and meet with town officials to ensure that we get the right design that will serve us for years to come. I will keep you all informed in this. The governing board and I continue to meet on a monthly basis. I continue to have a full board, and they work very hard on the town's behalf. We continue to review policies to ensure they are current because things change quickly. One of the new policies is there are no cell phones at the library. Not an easy decision, necessary, and it's worked well. People appreciate that we're trying to look out for everyone, and not having to deal with all that other stuff. We've also recently instituted a service dogs only policy. We were becoming sort of a place where, show and tell, and it just got out of hand. So for the safety and issues, so those two new policies. So, and also to reflect our patrons' needs and our mission statement as we move forward. I thank you for your time, and please be assured that the staff and I will continue to work hard to offer the Lisbon citizens library service that reflect our community's needs currently and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of work. Next item, Twyla.
Is the Moxie Festival?
You want to give an update?
Yep, we, Scott and I and some of the staff met with the Moxie Committee that has been doing this Moxie Festival for the last few years. They came with a proposal, which I thought was a good start to discussions on how we need to transition. The town, we laid out some of the things that we want to continue to provide and have been provided for the whole history of the Moxie Festival, which was a public works staff working throughout the 3 days, and prior to that, getting ready for the Moxie Festival. Police coverage for that day, which covers almost all of our officers, and the fire department, and some of the things that they do. One of the dilemmas that we have is that prior to the town taking it on, the chamber, Androscoggin Chamber, had provided the liability insurance. Then when they stepped away, the town has provided the liability insurance under our umbrella. It hasn't cost us any more money. So in working forward, the town probably will have to stay involved in some capacity, which we are anyway with some of our departments. But we're looking at talking with our carrier to see just what, if we were to step away from liability insurance, what that would cost the Moxie group, or can we continue to cover it with limited involvement as in terms of administrating it and managing it. So the committee, I think, when I was there, came away with, I thought we made great progress. The group that was there were some of the nonprofits who have been involved in the program, and I think we still have some work to do, but it was encouraging. So I'm not sure what the council, how the council would like to move forward with this. Time is a factor because we're coming upon the budget process in the next few months, and you're going to be heavily engrossed in that. And the Moxie Festival, it's a year-round planning process, so I'd like to get some direction from the council, what you'd like to do.
Just as for council, I mean, we actually had the the workshop that we had last week where we discussed multiple questions and concerns about Moxie, and I think there was a lot of good input, and I thank everybody for coming. As Steve works, I think one of the things, as you know, we've run into is just the resources to have the town and what we can and what we can't do. I had actually kind of put to Steve to actually lay out, what the town's responsibilities are and what we do and what we can offer and how we can make it work forward from there. And I guess I would ask the council just to, if you, kind of show your support one way or the other. I would hope that Steve could work with staff and with the Moxie committee to come up with some type of solution. And then maybe we could actually have a workshop to finalize it. And there will be some responsibilities the town will still have to maintain. But I think it's one of the things that has not happened, and one of the concerns I have as a counselor is, through my term of being a council, there's really never been any discussion exactly as a town what our responsibilities are, and there's really no job description roles or community development roles, that the town's been put there, and I think we need to determine what those are and make sure moving forward that there's a definite direction that the town actually, what they do and what they don't do and what we can offer and what our responsibilities are, so this question won't come up again. Yep. And I guess, does council have any concerns if we allow Steve with his staff to keep working with the Moxie committee to come up with some solution? And I do believe, at the end of the day, there is still going to be town resources used on this, but probably not as a primary role. That would be the goal. One good thing about the meeting, some people have stepped forward to actually commit to the idea of working on it, and I commend those people, because there's some people that really have some really good feelings about Moxie. And I actually ran into Noyce today, Lawrence, and he said, just keep moving in the right direction. That's all you need to do, and it will happen, and I truly believe that. There's a lot of good people in town, and I think it will happen. And as long as the town, I think, understands, and as a council, we can come together to actually support. And I think that's mainly what people are looking for, is us to come up with an idea of what we can do and support it and move forward to try to make sure it happens, not just this year, but oncoming years also. Any concerns from council at all for what Steve, for direction? Because it has been kind of a different scenario of where we were and what type of resources we ought to allow him to go out and do.
I think we need to look at how much we can raise in terms of additional revenue from it. If there's any money there that we could, by like doing a carnival or, charging more for fees or anything, to see if there's a way to cover the costs, that we're doing in-house now with the staff that are, it's not part of their job description, but, if we could hire somebody to do some of that work, if we could make the festival pay for itself, or if it can't pay for itself, then maybe we have to figure out, how can we downsize it, and what are the most important things to hang on to? Is the parade the most important, or the fireworks, or, which areas, can we cut off the least important bits of it and keep something going?
I think one of the things, if you really get a time to sit down with Scott, and I encourage any of the councilors, if they have questions, to come and sit with Scott or the staff, or to actually go over some of the details. And this year was a year that they actually did kind of bump up the idea of selling a little bit more books and some other items to actually try to generate it. And unfortunately, if we're not in that business, it's really tough to commit to that, because it can really go backwards the other way. And instead of actually boosting your event, you sometimes can actually pull the plug on it. So I think that's one of the concerns we have is moving forward, is we'd love to see a function that gets back to being more community-driven, and us as a supporting role.
The group really did present a workable plan, I thought. I think it needs to be worked a little bit more. And we assured the group that the staff who have been putting in many hours to make this work will continue to, be in an advisory capacity and make sure that transition happens smooth once we get to a place where we think we can make the transition. But
Mike?
Yeah, I think the approach is good to continue to work it and move forward, but I think you gotta set a timeline on it. I think you gotta have it resolved, by no later than the end of November or something like that, so that you do have the right direction and path move forward, so that you can still accomplish everything that needs to be accomplished to support the upcoming event.
Do you think the November or then October? Do you think that this design, this plan, we have not real privy to the...
By the end of November, we might be able to put something together. I don't think we're that far off. It really comes down to who's going to take the leadership role. We had talked about...
I just think if you don't give somebody a date to complete something...
they won't do it.
It'll continue to drag.
So as a council, we want to hear a final plan by the craft by the end of November, and if sooner, I think that's all the better.
Yep.
But is there anybody else, any other direction by council? Because I think it is really important. It was after the meeting the other night, one of the people in the town asked me as a councilor what our responsibility was of council to this event. And I had to be honest, in the last, 4 years, really, the only thing that's come before council is the idea of appropriating the $2,500 in road closures. I mean, that's really that's a level of our involvement. So, learning more about it, I mean, as everything in this town, you live in it all your life, but when you start getting in the details, there's a lot more to it than you can ever imagine. And there's been years of dedicated people to put this event on, and there's a lot of man-hours that makes this all work. So I think as a council, we actually just need to know what our responsibilities are and be able to stand behind it and provide them. Is that any more direction that you need from that?
That gives me some
Kinda works.
better idea.
Get it done with...
Get it done.
done.
We will do that.
Next item, Twyla.
Is banners.
This was something that Gina had wanted to put on the agenda, and she wasn't feeling well, so she couldn't be here tonight. This has to do with, back in 2009, Rosie Bradley, who was our Director of Economic and Community Development, was working with a group of, I guess maybe the Promotions Committee, or Design, to replace some of the banners that we have on the street now that are coming down hopefully by Friday. They paid for that service, and they were supposed to get a logo to the printer, which Scott and I can tell you it's not an easy process just to come up with a logo and say, this is what we'd like to have on the banners. It's a little bit more involved than that, and actually Scott and I have been working on that, and I understand the PCL group has been working on that. So Gina was wondering if we could partner with them, I think was what the request was going to be, and we've already basically spent that money. We just need to get them a design and have Scott and I work with the PCL group to come up with something, if that's okay with the council.
Sounds good by me.
What, I've been to a couple of the meetings in Ross, and they actually have a plan in place on doing the banners. And Ross, could you, before we actually do that, would you allow just a minute to kind of tell us where you are with that stage?
Sure, no problem. Our intention was to purchase in the ballpark of 25 to 30 banners. We hadn't ironed that out yet. We were going to do the 3 major intersections in town, downtown Lisbon Falls, down around the Moxie store in the mill, at the Route 9 196 intersection, and then downtown Lisbon Village. A handful of banners, hopefully seasonal. We haven't really refined all the things yet, but we wanted to do something that would be refreshed every 4 to 6 months and change. And we weren't sure what the graphic design is yet. I'm hoping, for some sort of seasonal winter thing that goes up in our first round. And then come springtime, we look at a maybe spring, summer with a Moxie splash on it, that kind of thing. We did want to work with the town on some ideas on where we go next. We believe we have the funding for most of that, but certainly if this was contributed, that would help us immensely.
One of the things that came out of any discussion, it seems really simple as banners, is one of the primary things you need is brackets for banners, and that's something that would go beyond the idea of just seasonal. It's something that's going to be up there and permanent. And if we drive around and look at, we have a variety of different brackets. So what I would ask of council is if we could give the support for Scott to work with the group to actually combine resources to actually put up some really good banners and actually come up with a plan on how we continue that and maintain them. And because one of the downfalls of some of the past in good intention ideas is the banners stay up a little too long, and then you end up with kind of like some of the older flags we have up now that we're working on getting down. So does council feel that we could do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we ought to do is, based on us having some funds towards banners, banners require brackets, so if there's a mixture there of what the PCL group has and what we have, we could buy new brackets and then come up with a plan to make them, changed over and maintained. Do we have to paint them every once in a while or whatever, so that they stay,
I would recommend that the council, give Steve the go-ahead to allow Scott to work with the group to try to coordinate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any concerns?
Great.
Thank you.
Make it so.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Next item.
Boards and committees discussion?
One of the tasks that you had me do over this past year was to work with the boards and committees and look at their mission statements, look at how they ran their meetings, as well as their bylaws. Most of the committees have mission statements. Most of the committees have ways of they're operating their meetings. Really haven't had to spend much time with them on that. The bylaws, I guess my question is, what does the council want to, how do you want to move with that? Do you want to have a workshop and just look at what they've done and where they are and just talk openly about that, or?
I guess one of the concerns we had looking at it, and this is something we requested Steve to do as part of one of his goals, should we have separate bylaws for every committee, or should every committee work under the same set of bylaws? I mean, those are things that, if you can try to get something that's a little more consistent. There are some things that came up with the rec department this year that we looked at when we get new members, the background checks and, certain criteria that need to be in place, and should we have those to be a standard for all our committees? And I think that's some of the stuff we need to discuss. I mean, some of them do have really good bylaws, but they're quite a bit different. And while we're reviewing them, do we make them more consistent? And, a couple of the other items were, the discussion we had at one of our workshops is, do we combine some of the committees together that seem to be kind of working on the same type of venue? And I think those still need to be resolved.
Yeah, the Conservation Committee has to be, basically, it's a standalone because it comes under state law, and they follow state law. We talked about taking the Trails Committee and making that part of that, and I think a discussion after the fact was that we would make the Trails Committee a subcommittee. The trails system, once we get started on this next leg, which is a 2-mile leg along the river, that will be it for the time being. And do you need the Trails Committee to work on other aspects of trails that we're looking at? Roger and I and some of the people from Lewis and Auburn are working on a multi-purpose trail to connect the rail line. It's basically a rail-to-trail concept, and that's part of the Androscoggin County Bike Ped program we've added in this year, which is Verler and I have been working on that committee. So, and Lewiston is really very, very interested and supportive of moving in that direction. So I'm not sure where the Trails Committee would come in.
I guess what I'd have you do is work with them and then come forward to a workshop with us and give us what your recommendation
Well, I
would be.
mean, I think the first question was bylaws, right? So from a bylaws perspective, I agree. I think they should be as consistent as possible within, understanding what the committees have to do and can and can't do. So I think they should draft a standard set of bylaws as best they can and bring them to us. And if you're going to consolidate committees, come up with a plan to consolidate them and then bring that to us, right? And go through it and we'll walk through all that stuff.
We'll walk through all of it in the workshop. It shouldn't be
Yeah,
a
you
real.
can do them one at a time, depending on how you
Okay.
can work them, or, that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to have like a standard model for bylaws, but then we'd be careful not forcing it onto committees, because some of these committees are so informal the way they operate that, it's like it doesn't make sense to have as complex rules as we would have for our committee here. That, I think you have to be careful trying to, fix something that's not already broken. So, let's go,
I would
have a
just-
standard model and go case by case.
I would just comment that consistency will be good, but each committee serves a different purpose.
purpose.
So there's going to be things in their bylaws and their mission statements that are going to be unique to their own committee
They
because
have a structure of it that's basically.
Yeah.
Same, yeah. Conservation Committee has a real good format, and the Planning Board has worked really hard in the last few months on a set of bylaws, which are very good. So we have a good template to work from, I think. Okay.
Any other questions from council on that? I guess you had some homework.
I do.
Next item, please.
Is under appointments, Budget Advisory Board member resignation from John Wiersbicky.
John Wisnicki has served us for many years since I've been here on the Budget Advisory Board. He came to me and asked him to make it a formal letter. And I'd like to read it first.
Make a motion to accept.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? And,
Order passed 6-0.
I too actually want to thank John for all his time. He put a lot of hard work into this, and he was pretty passionate about it. And I mean, he definitely was a gentleman that when he had his concerns, he'd voice them, but do it in a very positive, moving forward manner. So we thank you very much. It's if you would, again, I just want to thank him for his time.
I'll send something to him on behalf of the council.
That'd be great. Next item.
Is under appointments, Trails Commission member, resignation from Zachary Henderson.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Next item, Twyla.
Is the Appeals Board member, resignation from Joshua Holmes.
So moved.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Should we note on this one that he's resigning from this because he took over the position on the
That's what I was
planning
going to
board?
mention at the
Okay.
end. That some of these actually were with the idea of people swapping duties from one board to the next, not be able to hold multiple positions.
Yes, the planning commission still feeling my best.
Next item, please.
Appeals Board appointment, term expiring June 30th, 2015.
Make a motion to accept Kevin Coughlin.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 6-0.
Welcome aboard, and thank you very much. The, again, on some of these resignations, they were actually, some of them, not all of them, were the idea of actually taking over different positions and actually be able to leave the ones they were at. There were, a couple people that just did leave for different reasons, and we want to thank them for their time. And anytime you have people that are willing to step forward and give their personal time for the town, we got to commend them for what they did. Next item, Twyla.
Council communications.
Any communications?
No, I think it's going smooth.
All good?
What's that?
All set? Mark? I just want to touch base on a couple things. The Moxie discussion that's going on, I think, is something that if anybody, there's a lot of people have been approaching me on the side saying, hey, look, this is how I feel. I think they really need to step forward and actually voice their opinions. There's a lot of history for Moxie in town, and no matter how long you lived here or how much you've been involved, there's a lot of things that you just don't understand that took place. And I feel 100% that as we move forward, that Moxie will continue, and it may have a different look, a little different flavor, but it may be better, So again, I think it's, I think as we move forward, hopefully no one gets discouraged, and the people actually still look forward to Moxie, because there's some really neat ideas out there to try to even promote it even a little bit more. So.
I just add something too.
Sure. Go ahead.
Just one thing, the Fisher Road Bridge, I know I had informed everybody we were kind of behind schedule, and Crooker, who's doing that project, is waiting on the concrete decking that to be delivered, and that's one of the reasons we're behind on that. And just I'd like to make mention to the Public Works Department what a great job they've been doing on the cleanup program that we started. I really noticed a difference, and I know some of the public has noticed a difference and made comments. They're very noticeable, and thank them. Good job.
Twyla, could you just take a second? We actually have a election coming up, and one of the things I'd like to discuss, two things. One is, if we're going to actually hold a meeting that night, and I mean, if it does fall on the 6th as...
We have another meeting before that, right?
Yes, we have a meeting on the 16th,
We have a meeting on
then you're off for 2 weeks.
the 16th.
There's 5
right.
Tuesdays in November.
Yeah.
I mean, October.
You can
Right,
meet the
so we have another meeting
Yeah.
on the 16th, but
Yeah.
I would say you move it to the Wednesday or the
Or you
Monday.
could move it to October 30th and have it the week before.
Week 4.
That would give you still every other week as a meeting and
We could do that.
skip that week. The easiest way to do it.
The other item, yeah, that would work. The other item, Twyla, was you were actually in the workings of setting up a Meet the Candidate forum, I believe. So could you actually give a little detail? Do you have details as far as for dates? I just don't want to override a date that,
Which date did we pick?
I'm
I
not
haven't
sure.
looked at that stuff.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it.
I've been filling ballots all day long.
Okay. Well, Twyla is actually, with Jody, has been in the works of actually having what we've had in the past is Meet the Candidate forum. It will be done prior to a meeting. The what? The 16th? I thought that's what it was,
The
but I didn't
16th,
dare to.
okay.
And pretty much what would be done is, I think, prior to a council meeting,
Yep.
it will be,
It will start at 6 o'clock in the evening, and it should end up being finished around 6:30 or definitely before 7 o'clock. We'll give an opportunity for each candidate to give a 3-minute summarization about themselves. Then we'll ask them 4 questions. They'll all have a chance that are in the competitive races. They'll have a chance to answer those questions, so 3 or 4 minutes there, and then they'll end up doing a summary, and then we'll have a question and answer period from the public. So that's for the 16th at 6 o'clock here at
It's
the
always
Town Hall.
fun. It's, so if anybody has any questions about the people running for office, and that's not just for council, there's actually this school board also, is there openings and,
There's 2 seats on the school board, although those are not the contested seats. So
Okay.
it would primarily be at-large and the District 2 seats that are contested.
so if people are wondering what the candidates, who they are and what they stand for, please come and ask the questions, and you'll be able to be well-informed for the November vote.
We could take a second to let the public know that the absentees are here at the town office for the town and the state, and that we're filling their requests for their absentee ballots, and we'll be mailing their absentee ballots tomorrow. And those who want to come in early to vote are able to do that anytime now during our office hours.
That's why you're so busy, right?
I think so. We have probably around 200 already to fill.
Wow.
So it's been very busy.
That's good.
Right.
No other communications? Twyla, next item.
Is under the executive session, Order 2012-161 and 162, to go into executive session per 1 MRSA, Section 405-6A, Personnel Matters, and another Section 6A, Personnel Matters.
And there will be no vote at the end of this.
Move.
Second that.
All those in favor? You're in the back room here? Yeah, we can do it. Okay. This shouldn't take too long.
We're gonna go in the other room.